Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NextGen Planners podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm the head of community experience here at NextGen Planners. And today, I'm delighted to be joined all the way from the US and Indiana in the US by Mr. Thomas Kopelman. How are you doing today, Thomas?
Good, man. I'm guessing most people don't know where Indiana is. I was from Illinois, like near the Chicago area. So my whole life I've been able to say that and people know. And now I'm like looking back and be like, there's no way anybody knows where Indiana is.
No, I mean, sometimes people do. I mean, we know where like New York and LA are and things like that. But when you start to get inside a little bit more, it just becomes a bit ridiculous. So I think we vaguely know where we're talking about, but it's nice to have you either way. It's always good to have guests from the US on. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah,
So
man.
for anyone who doesn't know, Thomas, he is a financial planner. And he's also the co-founder at All Street Wealth. And his specific group of people that he works with is millennials. Now, we'll talk a load more about that in the podcast later on in this episode. But to kick things off, Thomas, can you just tell us a bit about what it is that you do on a daily basis?
Yeah. So I'm a financial planner. I think the more that I've talked to people in other countries, financial planning looks a little bit different. I bet where you are, financial planning doesn't really exist as well. And when it does, it's more of like for retirees. So basically, like my life is I spend a lot of time creating content. I've been very intentional that I wanted to grow a business where I found out that who I serve best are millennials who work in tech with equity comp, and then millennial business owners. Like those are the two people that I do really good work for. They're willing to pay a good fee. And my goal has always been to have like 75 to 100 clients. I never wanted to be the advisor that had 400 clients, meets with everybody once a year. I wanted to be really ingrained in my clients' lives and really be their financial sounding board, the person that they can bounce any ideas off of, the person that helps them evaluate key decisions. And so my day to day is I create content to try to, one, educate people, because I think as a financial planner, I can impact those 75 to 100 clients, but through content, I can impact just such a large number of people. But it's also a really great way to grow my business. So I spend probably 6 to 10 hours a week creating content. And then all the rest of the time, aside from that, I am meeting with clients and creating financial plans, trying to help them live the life that they want.
Great stuff, man. I mean, this is you've smashed it already, because this is, I mean, it's so refreshing to hear. If you said this to I'm going to call them financial advisor in the 1980s and 1990s, that you spent 6 to 10 hours a week creating content, firstly, they wouldn't even know what content is, but also, I mean, that they would not see that as a valuable use of time. But as you have proven with the kind of influence and everything that you've created over there, it is such a useful, and it's also enjoyable for you. I mean, I can see that you love doing this, and you wouldn't do it if you didn't love doing it, I suppose.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. My very first job out of college was more at like traditional broker dealer life, where you're selling insurance. They try to say you do financial planning, you throw them in, the expensive model portfolios they have. And what they taught us with selling was, come up with the 300 people, call all of them, like, hey, that buddy you played baseball with in 8th grade, give him a call and say, hey man, like, how are things going? Like, we should meet and see if there's any synergies between us. And it's like, no 23-year-old or 24-year-old's answering the phone and trying to find synergies with you. And then you sit down and you open up a packet. I'm like, if financial planning is so important and people need it, why am I selling it? Versus, content is your way to teach people and attract them. So the people who actually need your help are going to end up reaching out to you for that help. And that's always been my goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that quote there that you just said. If financial planning is so important and so many people need it, why am I selling it? Goodness, that's such a brilliant sentence to hear. And this is one of the things I'm so excited to talk to you about today is how you use social media to create leads and to find new clients, and to almost like it is a lead generation tool. But it's also, like you said, a financial education tool for out there as well. Last time we spoke, you mentioned that you get a lot of your clients from social media. I can't remember the exact figure. I think you did give a percentage. I think it was around about percentage. So maybe you can tell us what that is. But Can you just tell us again, like how you do that? What strategy do you have on social media for that kind of thing of getting new
Yeah.
clients?
I'll talk about my evolution too, because it's really changed from when I started. And I actually have a Kitsis article coming out here soon about how I've done it. But I would say 90% or more of my clients come from social media, and people always are kind of like shocked by that number. And they're like, are you messaging people? And I don't send a single DM to anybody to try to get them to work with me like that. That really isn't my goal. And so when I started, I got to work with a guy, his name's Justin Castelli. Like, this year, he was a top 100 advisor. Last year, he was the third ranked financial advisor by Investopedia. Just this awesome guy. And he was known as kind of the content king of advisors. And so I asked him to come work for him. And what he was really intentional about with me is, hey, like, you got to start with one thing, and you need to start with a schedule. Cause he's like, I created good content, but my thing was I'd be really sporadic. Nobody would know when it would come out. I would do one a week. And then all of a sudden I would only drop one the next month. And so from the very beginning, my goal was like, okay, well, what form of content can I do that I would like and that I can stick with, and just only do that one thing for a while. So I started out with a blog. I honestly didn't feel like I'd be good at video, writing, podcasts, anything right away, because I felt like I had a lot to learn. And I'd always said my whole life that writing was one of my worst qualities. The difference is that writing content is so different than writing a 10-page or 20-page research paper in school. Like, that was all about big words and long sentence structures and all these things. And content is more about speaking in the way that your ideal client is talking. And I think that always confuses advisors, because I see so many advisors that write in ways that try to make them sound smart. They use acronyms and they use words that people never understand. And all you do at the end of the day is push people away. Like, you are fighting for somebody's attention. If they're reading your thing and they have to go Google the word, they're not going to Google the word. They're just moving on to the next form of content. So for me, it's worked out well. So I started with the blog, and I'll be honest, like, those first blog posts took me 10 hours to write. Like, it would be 1 to 2 pages. I would edit, 100 times. I wouldn't feel good about it, but I did that for a while, and I just stuck with that. And then I would post about it on Twitter, and then I would post, that on LinkedIn. And then I would try to post like a couple more posts on LinkedIn a week, because I thought LinkedIn would be the way to grow. Every advisor told me Twitter is for networking, LinkedIn is for growing your business. And so I just believed it and did that. So I did the blog for probably 4 months and started to feel good about it. And it would take me now like 3 to 4 hours to do it. So I said, okay, now is the time for the next evolution. So right after that, I added the podcast, and I started doing, well, I didn't know to say this, but I did one podcast every single week, or one newsletter, or one blog every week. And then I went to the podcast, and the podcast was, hey, this is going to take me longer. It's a lot of questions. Got to find people. I'm going to do one every 2 weeks. Did that for a while. Got pretty good at it, started to get more numbers. And then I added my newsletter, started doing the newsletter at one time a month. My newsletter is like really long. There's a ton of parts to it. So I was like, I can't really do much more than one a month, because it takes me a good 6 to 10 hours to do. Did that for a while. And then my next evolution was, how do I start to post more? So then I went to, hey, I'm going to post on LinkedIn every single day, and I'm going to go to Twitter 1 time a day. Did that for a while, felt pretty good about it. And then I was like, I feel like I shouldn't just listen to what every other advisor says about Twitter. Like, if I think about who I want to work with, young people in tech with equity, young business owners, those are the people who actually live on Twitter. And so let's see if I can do it. And so I started increasing to posting about 3 times a day at a minimum. So like one Friday a month, I'll schedule out 3 posts every single day for the whole month at a time, which to a lot of people sounds kind of crazy and a lot, but you can repurpose a ton of the content. I've already been creating content for a year and a half. I had, like 70 blog posts written. I already had a ton of podcasts, ton of other posts. And so like sometimes I'll repurpose, sometimes I'll write new stuff that I think of. And then throughout the day, anytime I think of anything good, I'll go post it on Twitter as well. And so I've been doing that for 6 months. I was at, I think 1,200 followers when I started doing this in January. Now I'm at like 4,800. Last year on Twitter, I had like 1.2 million or 1.5 million impressions. I had 1.2 million last month alone. And everybody is like, well, the name of the game necessarily isn't impressions. Like impressions have to lead to new business. And I agree, like just because you get impressions doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. But I almost get every single client from Twitter now. I've never gotten more qualified prospects than I do now. Like right now, I'm onboarding one new client a week in the financial planning firm. And I have a wait list. Like my next available client to bring on is the last week of August right now. And it's really just been because of an intentional focus on Twitter and really just trying to speak to the audience that I know I do the best work for.
Oh man, there's so much in there. there's I'm trying to remember everything that you said, to be honest, but I mean, rather than do that, I think we did a poll recently on social media, and we asked where financial planners get most of their clients from. I think we had about 200 people complete the poll or something like that, and I think only maybe 2 or 3 people put social media as the majority of where their new clients come from. And as a result, we see a lot of people skeptical about the success that they get from this kind of stuff. And rightly so. They think, well, what's the point in doing it if I don't get any of my new clients from there? But I think if we reverse engineer this, it's not so much that the problem is that they're not getting any new clients from there, they should leave it. The problem is they're not trying hard enough, or they're not putting the right stuff out there. You've had to change. You mentioned that you've changed it loads of times. You've gone down loads of different routes. Just because you try something doesn't mean you have to do that forever. You can change it up in the future. You can try different strategies. You can try different things. It's all about trying out what works for you. And I think the big thing that I got from what you were saying there is consistency. That is enormous.
I think that's the hard part for people is they give up so fast. Like at the end of the day, like what I always try to tell advisors is like, I see on Twitter all the time, people will be like, oh, when you start your marketing online, like understand it's going to take 3 to 6 months. I've never heard of an advisor getting clients in 3 to 6 months. And you have to understand like the marketing funnel is so different as a financial advisor than a different company. So if I'm one of my clients and my job is like, I have a client, they own a dog, they own like a product, a consumer business that has like dog products. So they're going to have like little bags and they're going to have bowls and they're going to have these things like they can market online and somebody can say, ooh, I want that and buy it like instantly, right? Because it's $20, it's $40, it's $50. It's such a low ticket expense that people will just buy right there. My minimum fee for a client is over $4,000 a year. Nobody's going to see one post about what I do and be like, I'm ready to spend $4,000 on this guy to be my advisor. The average, you're like, I think what people don't realize is like, I used to think, oh, I'm going to write this great blog post. Somebody's going to read it and be like, ooh, I need a financial advisor. But that doesn't happen. You're not convincing anybody you need financial help. My job as a financial advisor is to educate you on all of the things that are relevant to you. So that there's the DIYers of the world who are never going to work with me in the first place, who are doing their research, they're figuring it out, they think they can handle it all themselves, and I'm going to educate them and they're going to implement it. Those were never going to be my clients. Then there's this whole other side of people who are, I don't want to do it myself. I don't really want to learn about finances. I'm probably not even going to read your whole content, but I'm going to see the point of it. So I'm going to see, Thomas just talked about RSUs. Thomas just talked about turning your side hustle into my full-time job, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, when they hit that pain point, they're going to be like, okay, I know 6 advisors in my life. All 5 of these guys I went to college with. They work at Northwest Mutual, whoever it is. They've been trying to sell me insurance my whole life. And then there's Thomas, who's never asked for anything from me. He's shared so much content, so many things that are relevant to me. I know he's a subject matter expert on that. I'm going to go reach out to Thomas because I know he can solve my problem. Like that is my whole goal of marketing is educate. So when people hit that pain point, they know that I can help them solve that problem. And that can be a really long time. I think like the research says it's like 12 to 24 months is really the lead time for people to know you before they would ever really become a client. And so I always tell people like expect 1 to 2 years before you start to get results. Like I have a ton of other advisors I know that create great content and they were not getting any prospects at 12 months. I started to really get good leads probably month 8 or 9. But there's still months I'll get 0. And then there's months like there was 4 months ago, I had like 16. So there's like ebbs and flows and you have to understand that. But I really do think the consistency and what a lot of people do is they're like, ooh, I'm going to start my firm. I'm going to do a podcast, newsletter, blog posts. I'm going to post every day. And all they do is become so average at all of them. They're not good at any single one of them. And you're better off at nailing one platform or one form of content and just running with that than trying to do everything and just be okay at them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's sort of, it's actually really nice to hear the kind of, you think about like, you won't get anything for like 12 to 24 months. I know that like, that might sound scary for people and I think I can't wait that long, but you can do this alongside everything else that you do. You know, this doesn't have to be it. You can do something else in the meantime, build up that thought leadership that you were talking about there, become that subject matter expert. And then imagine, I mean, let's just think about it. You spend what, 6 to 10 hours a week creating content, shall we say? Let's just say that's an average, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you got 16 leads in 1 month, that pays for pretty much your whole year. It pays for 2 years worth of your time to create that content in 1 month. That's enormous. And also the good thing about it is that you are speaking to your audience. So therefore those leads that are coming in, those customers that you're getting from social media are your type of people. They're the, mostly, not all of them, but the majority of them will be the type of people that you want to work with as well. So it means you don't waste money on pointless stuff out there that gets you the clients that you don't want. It means that you don't spend pointless money on things that don't work. It's just so cool to hear. I mean, I hope everyone who's listening is also finding it as cool as I am, because we just don't hear this kind of stuff from most people. So
yeah, I think you made a great point there though, of like the people who are coming in are qualified. Like they know exactly what I do, exactly who I work for. And most of the time the decision, whether they say yes or no, is what fee structure am I going to be in? And can I afford that now or not? And a lot of times the people who can't come back a year or two later when they hit the point where like things are a little bit more complex and they can afford it. And the other point you made that was great too, is like, okay, well, how are you going to get clients if you don't do this? Nobody is telling you not to do that. Like actually you should do whatever those other routes were going to be. And then the goal is that through marketing that you have like an ongoing way of having business 1, 2, 3 years down the line, where then you don't necessarily have to do that side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. Great stuff. So let's move on a little bit. So you, as I think you mentioned before, that your kind of target audience, I'm going to call it a niche. Yeah. There's a lot of arguments about niche. Well, not arguments, but a lot of discussions and debates going on about niching and stuff like that across here. By the way, I'm just going to put all my cards on the table and say I'm a big advocate and a big argument for having a niche. But people aren't here to listen to me, they're here to listen to you. So as I mentioned before, you work with millennials, creators, entrepreneurs. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, that's just what I've got from what you put online. And it could therefore be said that you do have a niche or a specialism or at least a target audience. What benefits have you got? I know you're a big advocate for this as well, but what benefits have you found with having that niche and that clear target market?
I think the point you made at first, though, that like I see a lot of advisors are weary of like picking a niche. And one thing to say is like, you don't have to only work with them, but you can't market to everybody. There's just no way to talk to a 65-year-old the same way as you talk to a 28-year-old business owner. Like all you do is then you try to create content that like has synergies between the two, which are very little. And you end up just speaking to nobody. So I always say like, pick a pick a niche, market to them. And then, you can work with other people, but I choose not to. Like I had a prospect come in a little bit ago, $5 million in retirement. I moved them to somebody else because one, that's just not my specialty. And I have an entire process around how to best work with the people I work with. And if you think about it, Michael Kitces has had these articles that like working with millennials is not necessarily simpler than working with retirees. It's just completely different. So if you think of like working with retirees, it's a lot more of like, especially in the US, it's like social security strategy, how to preserve wealth, how to live off of that wealth, how to, like really into the weeds of investments and making sure that like we're not taking too much out of our portfolio. But then you look at these millennials and it's buying a house, having kids, one job to the next job, to starting a business, to moving again, to vacations every single year, to, rental properties, to like, they have way more life changes happening. And so like really what the main focus is like you get a plan in place, but then we're always changing that plan. So like for my clients, my process is entirely driven around what that life looks like. So all my clients, after they become a client, one, we have accountability checkpoints. So like there's an industry statistic that's like 30 to 40% of client recommendations get implemented. Every advisor says clients are just not accountable. They don't get their work done. Like that's on them. And I was like, what if I just have accountability meetings? So like after we deliver the financial plan, the next meeting is called accountability meeting. We get 3 to 4 weeks. You get your stuff done. I get my stuff done. Whatever isn't done, we do together in that meeting. Since I've done that, every single client has gotten every single recommended action item done. And so we do that at every stage of like every year. So then the next year, what the process looks like is we meet post-tax time to come up with strategy for that year. We meet whenever company benefits time is to make sure we're maximizing your benefits and rolling into the right things. We meet whenever your equity comp is either vesting or your RSUs are vesting or your options are vesting to come up with the strategy. What are we going to do? Even though we've already pre-talked about it, but we want to make sure we solidify it and do it. And then we have one more time when you have salary increase and bonus time. And that's when we get a whole brand new plan. Because at the end of the day, what happens is if you don't do that, a lot of advisors do surge times. So they meet like, hey, I'm meeting all my clients for the annual review, January, February. But if you have a client who just got a 50% raise in July and you're not going to meet with them the next year, you know what's going to happen is they're going to spend all of it. And so my thing is, I'm going to meet you where you need the most help at the time that you're going to need it. And so then we're going to agree like, hey, when new money comes in, at least 50% of that is going to go to planning. That's either going to be investments, you know, planning for your next house, whatever it is, at least 50%. And for some people more, some people less, depending on if they're really far ahead or really far behind. Get that plan in place, have an accountability meeting after. And then all my clients have a link to my calendar anytime they need me. And so I tell them like the biggest problem with money for most people is that they feel super insecure. They feel like they don't know the right decisions to make. Oh, I'm about to buy a car. How much do I put down? How much can I afford? How much can I finance? Oh, hey, like, you know, we're going to move now. Public school doesn't look good there. Now we need to figure out private school. What can we afford? Like, I want you to just book a meeting with me and we're going to talk about whatever's on your mind so I can help you make sure that you're making the best decision for you. It doesn't have to be the most optimal financial decision, but that way you know you made the right choice for your life. And I feel like that's been one of the biggest difference makers is most financial planners have scheduled times they meet and that's it. Like you can't meet with them more. And I have some clients who, you know, my average client, we probably meet with 7 times a year. But then like my top tier client, I mean, they also pay me $20,000 a year, but I meet with them 4 times a month between their business and personal, between the 2 owners. And they just really want that much time and for me to help solve those problems. And I mean, if you think about it, like you go talk to anybody, no matter what income they make, pretty much they're insecure about money and they think they're far behind. If I can help alleviate that feeling, people are going to stick with me and work with me for a really long time. And those meetings are so easy. Book a meeting with me. We're going to talk for 30 minutes. Like I don't have to plan anything really. It's not like there's this huge research that needs to be done unless it's like, hey, I have a new job offer. Can you help like look into it, evaluate it and figure out like, what can I negotiate? But other than some of those things, most of it is just a conversation because I already know the information.
You smashed it, man, because as well, when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking, you know, we've talked about social media, but let's bring it back to the more, like, so we say traditional types of marketing, which is where most financial planners get their clients from now, which is existing referrals. If you're giving your clients so much value, you mentioned there about 4 times a month. I mean, that is just, that's highly rare. I think you would agree that's highly rare.
Yeah.
But they get an immense amount of value for that because you mentioned there that they're worried about money, they're insecure about money. You're meeting them with them 4 times a month to get rid of that insecurity. The amount of value that they feel from that is you can't put a price on that. It's
and the
priceless.
other side of it is some of the people I meet with a ton, like those people I meet with 4 times a month, it's because they own a really awesome business. They're 28 and 26 with a business that's doing like $2.5 million a year in revenue. And they're in over their head. They're like, we never really thought we would be here this fast. We went from 5 employees to 45 in a year, and they need me to help solve all their problems. They barely have free time. And so it's like any financial question sent to me. That in that next meeting, I'm going to help talk them through whatever it is. Like we're evaluating selling the business, buying out one of the owners, how do they hit their path to 10 million by 40, planning for their weddings, their honeymoons, buying a house, moving. Like there's just so many things that are going on and they have so little free time. And that's really how most of my clients are. Like almost all my clients are business owners with a really busy life, or there are people, working at Facebook or Amazon, and they make $500,000 to $700,000. They have kids, and they're just like, we don't have the time. It's not that we couldn't eventually figure this out, but you can help us in a tenth of the time. And for us to pay you $6,000 a year when we make $500,000 is like, that's basically what they make in a day. They might as well pay somebody and not have to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I was going to like touching on was the kind of traditional thing of existing referrals. If you're providing those clients with so much value and they feel like they're getting, a priceless amount of value from it, they also know others, I would imagine, in their network who would also benefit from your help. So not only are you smashing it on the social media side of getting new clients in that way, but you're still covering the existing referrals and the kind of relationship marketing and the customer lifetime value on the other side as well of adding more clients from them. So it just makes sense on both angles. You're just providing a massive amount of value for everyone that you come across, which is, again, just amazing. So if anyone in the audience is perhaps, again, if we could like just a brief on this one, if anyone in the audience is thinking about going niche or having a specialism or something similar to what you've got, what would your advice be to those guys?
Yeah, I would say is like, eventually you want to niche down pretty far, but you don't necessarily have to start there, because I think the fear from some people is like, I don't even know who I like to work with. And so I don't know where I really want to niche down. And what I will say is you don't have to be stuck with what you start with too. But what I did is I just picked millennials. I was like, okay, I'm 23 years old at the time. I want to work with people. There's no way a 60-year-old is going to look at me and say, I trust him with my money. Like I've barely even managed my own money at this point. And so I was like, they're not going to trust me. Two, my parents aren't even going to be retired. So like, how am I supposed to identify with and understand retirement when I don't even know anybody in my life who's retired? And so I was like, well, that means I'm going to help people that are millennials. And I've always heard the thing of like, if you work with people that are within about 10 years of your age is really kind of that sweet spot. And like, now it's like my siblings, my friends, everybody's going through all these life stages. So like, and all my clients are. And so by having that niche, I understand it super well. And so when you work with everybody, you're about, like a mile wide of stuff, but it's like that deep. But for me, I work with a small segment of people and I know really deep into the weeds of everything that they're going to go through, that like, I can already talk to them. Like I sit down and talk about goals and they're like, I can't think of like what my goals will be. And I already know all of the goals they possibly could have because I've been helping all of these clients. So what I would say is like I think that a good range is like pick based on your age range. Like if you're 40, you can work with accumulators that are, in their 40s to, I'm 10 years away from retirement. If you're 25, it's probably better to work with people who are starting out. And also like the younger you are, the less people are probably going to pay you. And so working with those younger people, maybe, I started out with $100 a month were my clients, $150 a month. My first 20 clients, my revenue was literally like a little over $2,000 a month combined. Like it was like $2,500 a month. Now I have 48 clients and it's like almost 13K in revenue a month because I've grown, I've gotten better. I've found who I can do better work for. And I can add a ton of value because I have the information and the knowledge really deep. So I would say age range is a good way to do it because it's hard to, Adam Kamela is in Indianapolis. He's like one of the best advisors in the country. And he's like, he works with optometrists who are going to sell within 2 years. Like that's his niche. It's super deep. He can charge an insane amount of money and he's so good at it. Like that is fine, but it's hard to be like, I am the financial planner for optometrists. Cause it's like my great uncle's an optometrist. He's like 80. That is so different than, hey, I'm 30. I've been out of school for a couple of years. I just launched my own business. Like how you work with them is going to be so different. So you don't really want to be that narrow where I think age range works well and then go deeper into who you like. Like I know somebody who works with tattoo artists and then I know somebody who works with, millennial fitness entrepreneurs. And then like Trade, my partner, only works with millennial creators. And so you don't only have to be like, I work with, people who are 25 to 30 who work, in pre-IPO companies with ISOs. Like it doesn't have to be that deep, but you have to have like a big similarity among that group of somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. And because you've summarized it perfectly, them really deeply. So I was speaking to, I think it's the second time I've mentioned Laura on the podcast actually, but Laura Latterette from she's in Georgia in the US as well. I think well, you vaguely know
Over.
Laura,
Yep.
and she only works with LGBTQIA plus clients, and because of that, they know that she knows what they're going through. Like she knows exactly what maybe not they want to do. Again, it's not related to age, this one as well, but she's really figured out for those type of people what they want and what they're going to need, and she knows
Yeah.
it, she understands it.
And I think
But
that's a
like,
great example because they have like deep feelings. Like you can really like marketing is about like hitting people with how they feel and how you can solve and like alleviate maybe feelings. And that is an audience who like you can know. I mean, maybe I don't know if she like personally feels that way, but like after me working with all those clients, she can know their pain points and what they're feeling. And like, you know, not to get political, but then after Roe versus Wade, there was the whole talk about like, now they're going to go for, you know, same-sex marriage. And it's like, okay, well then if that's a possibility, what are planning things that we could be doing now? Cause there's a lot of fear among those people of like, well, hey, if they reverse those, like I probably have like 10% of my clients are LGBTQ. And there's definitely fear around that of like, hey, right now we can be on each other's health insurance while one spouse stays at home. Or even like how, like if one passes away, how do you handle their social security? Like all of those things could be completely changed. And they're super important to think about and know really well. So she's like that perfect person where that is a great audience to serve because of unique issues.
Absolutely, man. I think the best analogy that I heard for niches is like when you have a knee injury as a sports person, you want to go to a person who is a knee specialist.
Exactly.
You don't want to go to a general practitioner who knows a little bit about knees but not enough. When it comes to your knees, that could mean that you potentially could not walk again in the future. Are you going to have someone who knows exactly what they're talking about and has done this 10 million times? Or are you going to want someone who knows a little bit about it and could perhaps sort you out in danger of never walking again? I mean, the analogies that are out there, well, this is why I'm such a big advocate for it.
And I love it. And that's exactly why I don't work with people outside of my niche, is because it seems a little hypocritical to like pick a niche and like talk about like, hey, I'm a specialist in this, like, this is what I know really well, but oh, also, will you refer me your parents so I can work with them? Like that just doesn't make sense. So what I do is like, even I have a referral sheet for all my clients. Like I literally have for your parents, financial advisors. I'll have, you know, pre-retirement, retirement, like, hey, business, like everything that like the specialist for your parents, I will refer you out to. I don't care. I don't want that extra money. I'm not saying that. I think maybe in the future, All Street Wealth will develop more and I'll add an advisor to serve those people, but it won't be me.
No, that's a good thing as well. I've seen a lot in especially in the States and moving across here into the UK as well, is financial planning firms with a lot of different individual kind of specialisms and niches inside it. You've got to be careful with that, because obviously the firm's marketing is therefore got to be different to each of the individuals. Mm-hmm. But when you've got that kind of umbrella of you cover all sorts of different aspects, you know, that's a machine. That's huge. Yeah. You've got all sorts of different things covered.
I agree. That's why we didn't start there, is because we were like, we want to develop a great brand where we're known as like top advisors, which helps. Like, so this year, both Trayton and I were named top 100 advisors, which is like a really great way for our firm to market. And then the goal was like, let's start here. Let's become known as like the best millennial financial planning firm in the country. And then we can expand past it, because my belief is people don't go work with Northwest Mutual or like whatever the company is. They don't really go work for companies anymore. They go work for the advisor. So how I believe advisor marketing is, firm can have an overall brand, but like really marketing is to each advisor. Like, here's who I work with. Here's my marketing. You choose to work with me regardless of where I'm at. And then if you have a good brand that can help funnel people too as well. And like, hey, people just know we're an awesome financial planning firm. Their friends have talked about it. They've seen us all over. They know our education is great. Hey, I'm going to submit it. Okay. Hey, I am a retiree. Great. That goes over to X person. Oh, hey, you know, I'm a doctor. That goes over to X person. Like, we just know we couldn't do that at the start. And we don't know necessarily we're going to do that in the future either. Like right now, so we have a couple other hires. So I have what I call an advanced planner. I hired a CFP who's been in the industry for a long time, really great planner. He does all of my clients' financial plans for me. So he frees up like 30 to 40 hours a month of my time so I can keep growing the business, keep meeting with clients, and onboard as many clients as like, you know, one a week, which is really hard to do, honestly, even with him. And then we have an assistant starting probably September-ish. She's already hired. We're just figuring out the start date. And then we're like, do we really want to add more advisors? Because you either go add young advisors, you train them, they come, they leave, they start their own. So it doesn't really help you that much. Or you go find an older advisor who's like, I don't really want to start my own. I'm a good advisor. I want to find a place where I have a little bit more freedom. But that's a little bit, I think those are harder to find. And you have to be able to pay them a lot, which takes a lot of years of revenue to build up to a point where you go pay somebody $150,000 to $200,000 plus benefits.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, and also you can't guarantee that they would understand the target audience that you're working with as well. So it's even harder when you add the topic of niche in there as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's move on a little bit. So you've been working recently. It's gone down quite well, actually, especially amongst financial planners in your network, because you've been doing a lot of work recently on creating really visual, beautiful deliverables for your clients, and that includes a financial plan. I think you built a 1-page one or a 2-page one as well along the way somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I love Carl Richards' idea of the 1-page financial plan. But I've never been able to. I did 1 page. My first ever draft was 1 page, and then I think 1 page can be super great for, like, I had a bunch of people who are like 24, 25, like, they're making $100,000 first job. It's 401k, Roth IRA, like set up these savings accounts, life insurance, like it's pretty basic. So I could do 1 page. Now I'm at the point where they're like 5 pages, but it's like, it's taken a ton of evolutions to get here and we still evolve. So like first page is literally like, what are the key things you need to know? What's your net worth? How are you invested based on taxes? How are you invested based on asset classes? What are your key goals? What is your savings rate? What's your marginal effective tax rate? That's page 1. Page 2 is all of the goals in order of priority that you said are most important to you. Because I think where a lot of advisors lose clients is, I'm just going to give you all of the key things you should do financially. So HSA, 401k, backdoor Roth, like all those things, but I don't actually even care what you're trying to accomplish. Here's just what you need to do. And then people are like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, it doesn't even make sense to me. So when I can tie everything we're doing to the specific goals they have and show them that, like, hey, for you to accomplish 1, we have to push off 6. And like, I have a great example right now of a client who, they want to pay off all their student loans as fast as they can. They want to buy a house in 2 years, and they want to go on a European trip before they have kids. They can't do all 3 based on what they're spending. That's fine. I don't care what your goals are. I want to show you what it takes to get there. And if nothing else changes, the house has to go back at least a year for you to be on pace to get it. Or you can find ways to cut spending. It's your life. There's no right way to do it. You might rather pay off those student loans and travel and delay the house. Or you might say, I could wait an extra couple of years with my student loans and not pay, the full $2,000 a month. I could go, not the minimum payment, but the middle. And then that way I could hit the house. That's your choice. And then that allows them to actually see and say, like, now that I think about it, the house actually should be higher up, when I realized that I would have to wait longer because of this goal. Yeah. So I think that is crucial. And then we have a calendar for them. So we have like a 2-year calendar by quarter of like options vesting, company benefits time, bonuses coming, trips they're going on. That way we can just be aware and then throw it in our CRM of like, hey, here's when we need to make sure we remind them to sell their RSUs. The next page is a whole page on recommended action items. So like, I tell my clients, I give them an advice on anything that has to do with money, but it really is about what they want. Cause I have some clients who like, we're really focusing on saving for a house, paying off debt, like that example. But I have other clients who like, we're really focused on helping them figure out how to run their business, what they can pay themselves, tax strategies, and whatever other goals they have. So it's unique to each individual person, but we have that whole page there. The next page is surplus breakdown. So I believe in reverse budgeting. I believe in automation and finances. So we figure out, hey, you make $20,000 a month, you spend 14, great. We have $6,000 a month to plan for all of your goals. I show them exactly where that $6,000 should go and how to automate it. I help them do that. Then we have either like a bonus plan or an equity plan of, hey, here's your bonus. 20% is going to emergency fund. 30% will fund your backdoor Roths. 20% down payment of a house, 10% travel, 20% spend however you want. And then I give them a summary of, here's what I think you're doing really well. Here's where I think you're at, whether you're on track, behind track. Here's what you need to work on this year and what we want to focus on. And then my last page is I break up implementation in phases, because I think people get overwhelmed. And so we always start quick wins in the top, and that'll be phase 1. And then phase 2 might be estate planning and insurances, maybe rolling over old 401ks, just things that might take a longer period of time so we can build momentum first.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, man. I mean, we don't have anything like that. I mean, so I'm going to say this, but then if there's anyone in the audience who does have it, please get in touch because I'd love to have a conversation with you.
And you can link it in here. We share it everywhere. It's on our website as a download. Like a lot of people like sell theirs or hide theirs. And I'm like, if you want to go copy this and create it, do it. Like, absolutely. Yeah. Like, I would rather help you do it. I don't need to go sell it for $300 to give you the template. Like, maybe in the future we will, because a lot of like, it took us, that's probably my 8th iteration of the financial plan. And I even had a graphic designer take one of ours to make it better. And then Trayton took it and made it even better. And I realized it's not easy to create. So like, we want to give that to people as an option. I just don't really want to be the like money grab person where everything is about like making more money,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think as well, like, well, certainly in the UK, I think probably to an extent in the US, we're great at doing the financial planning, which is fantastic because otherwise we wouldn't be financial planners. But the financial plans, as in like the deliverables, I think they're still missing. The only thing that a client gets across here in the UK is maybe sometimes a cash flow report and definitely a suitability report, which you guys probably have across there in the UK, the US, called like recommendation summaries or something like that. Immensely dull, immensely long, full of compliance jargon, full of regulation, full of stuff that they don't need to cover the advisor's backside. But we don't have anything that actually like does all the things that you just talked about there. So I think and there's an argument that this is like the planning is in the planning. So like the planning is seeing you and hearing you talk about it in meetings. But what about if 3 months down the line, your client forgets something and they want to remember it and they want to go back to the financial plan and say, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. This could be a reason why they're not doing the things that we tell them to do. Like, would you say 30 to 40, only 30 to 40% of clients do what financial planners tell them to do? Imagine if we gave them like deliverable financial plans that they can go back to. We could print them out, put them on people's walls, something that they can go back to and remember, oh yeah, this is why we're doing that. Imagine if those rates could go up just because of one simple financial plan. We're supposed to be financial planners, but we don't give financial plans. I think that's something that we're very, very heavily missing. Again, if anyone in the audience does this kind of stuff, please get in touch because I'd love to have a conversation with you.
And what I will say is I've heard that here too. And everybody's argument is like, well, we're giving them the information, but like, then a lot of times they just put it in like words. So they just like write these things. And it's like, if it's not easy to read, it's same as content. Like if it's not easy to digest, people don't really want to look at it. And then they say, well, time, it's going to take us like, that's an extra hour of time to put it in there. It's like, well, hire somebody. If you've already created the whole financial plan and their job is just to put it into there, that's just data entry. Pay somebody $25 an hour, and that will cost you 25 to $50 per plan when they're already paying you, 4 to 10K a year. Like, I mean, that is something that I think helps clients stay. Cause I get clients all the time that come from other advisors, or their CPA will refer them to me and they'll be like, I didn't even know my advisor. Like they just tell me, they'll just be like, hey, start a Roth IRA and, here's this taxable account. They don't even remember what they're doing. They don't even know how much money they're doing there. They don't know the progress they're making. They don't know what they're working towards. And then they come to me and they have this plan. They're like, wow, this makes me feel so much better because I know what I'm doing and why. And it's like, that's why clients stay, not because you lock them into an insurance product, not because you lock them into 1% AUM and you throw them in 20 ETFs. So it's hard to move and change. Like, get clients to stay because you're giving them good advice and good deliverables that help them.
Yeah. We still hear horror stories across here in the UK, certainly about like clients who only see their advisors maybe once every 2 years. Like,
same here.
And it's a phone call. And that drives me absolutely crazy. Like, financial planning is a prestigious, like, it's a prestigious product. It's a high quality product and a certainly high end product that not everyone can afford. That is not the value that the clients deserve. Like, they deserve way, 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 way more than that. They deserve what you're giving them now. They deserve what you are providing them with.
Well, thanks, man. But what makes me so mad is like a lot of the big firms, the name of the game is sales. So it's like, I'm going to get 700 clients. I don't care if they have 5,000. I don't care if they have 1 million, 2 million, whatever it is. I'm going to charge them a high percentage. I'm going to try to sell like as many. And my goal is to never talk to them. Like, unless they reach out to me, my goal is that I just keep them in there. I charge them the fee. I never say anything about it. And then, but then there's then the other side of, hey, we do financial planning for free. You come in, we'll give you a free financial plan. Their financial plan is you need our permanent life insurance product, our long-term care, term insurance to cover it, our disability insurance, and here's our aggressive allocation investment fund. It's like, that is not a financial plan. That is, here's every product I could possibly sell to you, and I want you to buy them. And people like, it's free. Like, nothing is ever free. And then you're paying them this way. And then 5 years later down the line, you're like, man, I haven't been getting what I want to go to a new advisor. And they're like, all those products are terrible. We're going to need to like get out of them. And they're like, oh, I spent all this money. It's like, you would have spent less money by just paying a true financial planner who's a fiduciary than go through that whole journey.
Yeah. And you would have got more value because, like you said, I mean, certainly if they're seeing them to the extent that they are seeing you and they're getting access to you, just like your clients do, the amount of value that they get there is worth more than they could pay. It certainly is. So you've mentioned a few times about All Street. So that is your business that you co-founded with, is it Trayton?
Yep. Trade Navor.
So we have a lot of people in the audience. I don't think it's a surprise that would probably be thinking that they'll have their own financial planning business one day. Maybe a lot of them will already have their own financial planning business. What tips do you have for them on running a successful I suppose it's two parts: launching and running a successful financial planning business.
Yeah, good question. I would say first is like figure out if you want to start it on your own or find a partner. Everybody talks about like, hey, when you launch your own firm and you're going to be a solopreneur, like it's pretty lonely at the top. Or, I mean, you could say the bottom, I don't know what it is, but lonely when you're out there by yourself. And for me, I've just always been like a team atmosphere person. And so I wanted to build it with somebody else. And so if I was going to build with somebody else, it had to be somebody that had different strengths and weaknesses than I did. And so it's like, what I knew really well is financial planning, process. I knew how to like put out good content. And so I was like, I have to work with somebody who believes content is the way to grow, who wants to work with the same age range, because I wanted that to be the firm brand. But Trayton was like, those were the things that he was less good at, but he was better at visual design and websites. And like, he's really good at like getting small tasks done. And so like, we basically are just like this perfect pair where like, hey, we do the podcast. I edit the podcast. He edits the videos. Like, he does the website design. I help write it for him. Like, all of our monthly guides we write. I write most of the guides. He puts them into some beautiful PDF download. He creates the one page on the website for people to do it. Like, he does all of the design, all of that beautiful stuff. And then I do kind of more of like the writing. And even though he's a great writer, like he's definitely as good as me as a writer. But we just kind of divide and conquer. But starting the firm, mine was different because I got to start with, $2,500 of revenue. So it was like, okay, after expenses, I still am paid $2,000 a month. Like, I can live off of that and not really go into debt. But what I tell people is build if you're going to be risky, do 1 year, but I would say 2 years of living expenses and business expenses saved, because what you don't want to do is be like desperate for clients, take on the wrong type of clients, or just like go out of business because you didn't have enough cash flow to give yourself there. Because I believe anybody could make it if they give themselves the time and they try to learn and become better. So I would say that's a big thing. I would also say start creating content and building your brand before you launch. A lot of people wait till they do it, but if it's going to take you 1 to 2 years to really develop that, that is a long time. And don't think just because at 1 year you're starting to get like 1 to 2 leads a month, if 50% are converting, that still might only be 6 to 12 clients that year. So I would say like for 6 to 12 months ahead of time, be developing your brand, figure out who you want to work with, like what are their problems, listen, take questions, but especially develop your process. I think so many advisors go in, they don't have a uniform process. Every client comes in and they do different things. You don't know what the meeting is next. And clients can see that and feel that, and they don't want to be a part of that. So for us, like our process is so uniform. Everybody goes through the same process. We have automation created. We have videos in between every meetings, like explaining where they are, what's next, how to use our software. Like we just have so much communication that like I at first worried, like, am I going to be talking to people too much? And everybody always says like they want me to talk to them more. And so it's like, then like our process, knowing that I work with all these busy people, accountability is huge. So it's like, I had a perfect example. Last year I had a lawyer. He needed to refinance his private student loans from graduate school. I reminded him every single week until he did it. Every Monday, hey man, reminder to do your student loans. It took him like 5 months, but he did it. And so it's like, what do you need to do to help solve these problems? And do it, and make sure you continue to do it.
Yeah, the being contacted too much or being in touch with your clients too much is, I think it's a cop out by a lot of people, to be honest. I don't think there's such a thing to. I mean, if you're literally emailing them every single minute of the day, that's the extreme where it's like that's too much. But you know more about your clients than a lot of people, right? So we say like you know how much they spend every month, which is a big thing that they don't even tell their family in a lot of cases. That you know every aspect of their family life, you know what they're doing for a job, you know their plans, you know their goals, objectives, what they want to do with life. You know almost everything about that person. Why would you leave it for a couple of years to even, to give them a phone call or something? I mean, it's just nonsensical. Even every year, to me, once a year is not enough. To communication with your clients, if you want to stay that kind of central part of their life, once a year is not enough to understand them.
And you can have newsletters and other things to help add more communication too. Like we have we probably send anywhere from 2 to 4 newsletters a month to our clients, like updating them on things like, hey, new high yield savings account that has 2% now, or like, hey, I bonds might be something good for people, like just things to help educate them. Like the market's going down, we're educating them on the market and what we're thinking through it. Like there's a lot of things you can do there, but I also think you made a great point about getting to know your clients. Like we are so intentional about, like, we have a whole meeting just digging deep into who they are, their values and their goals. And like, you can get to know them well. Like one of my new clients, like I only had them for probably 3 months. I was the first person before family and friends to know that they were going to have a baby. I knew over a month before anybody else because they felt super comfortable with me. And it also had to do with finances, so we can start to plan with it. And I think like, if your clients aren't talking to you about like big things in their life that are like, maybe only you get to know or some other people, like you probably aren't doing a good enough job getting to know them or like making them feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, great point. And also, I think we've seen a lot of difference between the people who have educated their clients about the economy. So like you mentioned there about the market going down, for instance, the people who have educated their clients and told them that this was going to happen at some point, they're not getting called. They're not getting emails saying, why has my portfolio gone down by this much? Because they already knew it was going to happen. Yeah, exactly. That's perfect, because they know what's going to happen. You've educated them well enough. They knew it was going to happen at some point. So there's no big shocks. Sorry,
I was just going to add one thing to that. And I think what we did is, so I always educate them that I was like, hey, the market's going to be up and down. There's nothing we control about it. Our thing is we're going to stick with it. We're going to keep buying. If the market goes down, probably the best time for us to buy. Like if you're a millennial and you have 3 years of a negative market, like you can accumulate so much wealth from retirees who are selling to try to still be able to fund their life. And then when that happened, I just put up a whole thing of like, here's to prove why I said it's true. There's an average recession averages, 14 months. It happens, once every 6 years, blah, blah, blah. Here's how many times there's this drawdowns. And then they can see like, oh, I'm not making it up. And it's backed with research that like, this is going to happen. We're going to get through it. We're going to stay the course. And I don't let any client invest money. Like I had some clients who come in and be like, hey, I have a 60-40 portfolio. I'm buying a house in 3 years. I'm like, no. Absolutely not. Like we are not adding any more money to that. And to be honest, we should probably move that to cash or I bonds or something else more safe. And so it's easier to hold on when your investments are 10 to 40 years away from my clients.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Okay. Final few questions for you, because I'm just wary of the time and I don't want to hold you for too long. I could talk to you for hours though, to be honest. This is a bit dangerous.
Hey, man.
So we ask this question to everyone. And it gets some really good answers. You guys in the US are a little bit more kind of ahead of the game than we are. We always look to you for kind of what the UK is going to look like in a few years' time when it comes to financial planning and a lot of the things in society, really. But what are you most excited to see in the world of financial planning in the next decade, next 10 years?
I would say better software, which might be an interesting answer. Like I think that financial planning, everybody's starting to realize that financial planning is the way to do it. And I think there's a lot of arguments whether like AUM is going to go away. I don't think AUM is ever going to go away. I think like I think if anything, like I offer clients like flat fee AUM, which means like, hey, here's your fee. If you want to pay it out of investments, you can, because it feels better than paying out of cash flow. But like, it's your choice. I don't care how you pay the fee that you're going to do. So I think like hey, 5 million, you pay 1%, it's 50K to me a year, and I meet with you 4 times. Like, I hope that goes away, because I think that's absolutely ridiculous. But I think software, because right now we have decent financial planning software. But the problem is it's all really geared towards retirement and how you live out in retirement and a little bit of tax planning. Like Holistaplan, I don't know if that's where you are. Holistaplan is this amazing tax planning software, which absolutely changed the way that we can do business and analyze taxes and show scenarios. And then Altruist, I think, absolutely changed the game of investment management. Like, I have 75% of my investments there for clients and the rest at TD Ameritrade. I spend 10 times more time on that 25% than I do on the 75%, because of how easy it is, how much better it makes my life. And I think the goal of software is going to be, how do we like get rid of like some of the background analytics and research so you can spend more time delivering advice and being with clients? Because a lot of the job really is paperwork and, just all of the random things that don't really help you be a better advisor. But I think we'll get financial planning software that allows you to like, hey, I can look through here. I know what your answer should be, and I can create financial plans right inside that software. And then I can have apps that better integrate and show like, hey, you overspent this month, and I can know about that. And also like integrating like goal planning with financial planning. Cause like, all financial planning software looks at is like, oh, you want to buy a house in 5 years? Like, do you have enough assets to pay for it? And like, that's not really how it is. It could solve you like, hey, if I have all 4 of these goals and, here, what is it going to take to get me there in the right time? Am I going to be short? Where does that come from? Like, some of that math and analyzation could be better done, but they're all like separate. There might be a goal planning tool, but then that doesn't integrate with your financial planning tool. And I just want like one software that's better equipped to be with that younger generation than just retirees. Yeah. And so hopefully we'll have that. But I think that moving to financial planning, like away from investments and insurance companies, I wish that we'd have better regulation on like, if you sell insurance, like you have to have a different title. You cannot be financial planner. If I'm at a captive place selling insurance, like I think just reform to have better understanding for people of like what really is financial planning, who is doing financial planning, what does that job look like? I think there's just a huge educational wave that needs to be done.
Yeah. Good stuff. That's why I asked that question, because it gives different answers every time. So yeah, that's really good. We also like to ask our guests for a book or a piece of content or something that has helped them in their career so far. I always shock people by saying it can be like a film or like an album or something like that. But anything that has really helped you in your career so far, what would you recommend our audience consume?
I mean, I'm sure this is said all the time, but like just the view of money and like the goal and role of money. I think Morgan Housel's Psychology of Money is the best personal finance book that exists. I could read it over and over and over again. So I would recommend that one. Another book I just read, which I think is like really great if you're going to be, if you're going to start your own business or even work with business owners, is I read Shoe Dog, which is the book about Phil Knight, the Nike CEO. And I think like, it's a very interesting story of just like his journey of entrepreneurship and like always being told it wasn't going to work, but figuring out how to solve the problem. But I also think it kind of shows the side of like, it's really great to create something meaningful that you love and value, but like, don't give up your whole life to do it. Because if you look at almost everybody who's been that successful, when they look back on their life, the one thing they regret is like, I didn't have a great relationship with my family. Like I wasn't really a good father or parent or mother. I, wasn't maybe the best spouse. Like I wasn't home. Like I wish I would have saw my kids do X, Y, and Z. I wish I would have had more free time. It's like, the pursuit of money can be a dangerous path that like you want money to fund the life that you want, but you don't want to give up your whole life in pursuit of money either.
Yeah. Thank you for coming to our TED Talk. Exactly. Good stuff, man. That's perfect. Well, I think we'll probably end it there because we've gone for nearly an hour now. But yeah, I mean, that has been unbelievable. So good. We always like to give the last word to our guests to say thank you for joining us on the podcast. So can you just tell our audience where they can find you, how to connect with you and everything like that?
Yeah, so Twitter is definitely the place I put out the most content. So I'm just at T Kopelman. I'm on LinkedIn. I kind of repurpose my good content from Twitter to there. So if you want to follow me, I'm Thomas Kopelman there. But though I would say those are the two best places. I mean, DM me. Like I get a lot of advisors reaching out. I've had to say no a lot now to like meetings, but I'll always answer questions in DMs to people. And I'm gonna probably start doing like one Twitter space a month, where I let young advisors come in and just kind of pick my brain and ask questions. I was doing 2 meetings a week with young advisors. It just became too much. And now it's like I get 4 or 5 a week who ask me. And then it's like, how do I pick saying yes and saying no? And so I'm just going to start doing like maybe a little bit bigger events to help answer questions for people.
Good stuff, man. I'm assuming they'll be on your Twitter if people want to join them from the UK as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Great stuff. Well, that was Thomas Kopelman from All Street Wealth on the NextGen Planners podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, obviously you're already listening to it on one of these things, but you can share it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, we're also on. And you'll also find it on our website, nextgenplanners.co.uk, where you'll find more information about all the cool things that NextGen Planners does, including our amazing community, which now has over 800 financial service heroes in there, our training contract, our conference, which is coming up in 2023, and loads more cool stuff as well. And of course, we are on Twitter, just like Thomas. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram. I always say this at the end of every episode as well. We might be on TikTok eventually. By the time this podcast is released, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a way to do it. And also, if you could leave us a review, that would be amazing. Just give us an idea of what you're enjoying the most. That'd be fantastic. It really does help us. But that's enough of me blabbering on. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's podcast. We'll be back very, very soon with another one, of course. But for now, thank you to Thomas for joining us. Thank you guys at home for listening as always. And we'll see you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.